a peaceful place. On the southeastern tip of Tasmania, Australia, sits a historic site called Port Arthur. Once a 19th century penal settlement, by the 1990s it had become one of the country's biggest tourist attractions. Families visited for its gardens, its eerie colonial ruins, and its connection to the past. On the 28th of April, 1996, hundreds of visitors wandered through the grounds, enjoying what seemed to be an ordinary Sunday. But by the end of that day, Port Arthur would be known for something else entirely. It would be remembered for one of the deadliest mass shootings in modern history. The day of the massacre. On the morning of April 28th, a man left his home and drove towards Port Arthur. In his car, he had packed 3 firearms and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Before arriving at the historic site, he stopped at a seascape cottage, a guest house run by a family that he had long resented. The family, David and Nolene Martin, had a prior property dispute with the man's father. So, on this calm April day, he killed them both in their house and continued on his way. The man's name was Martin Bryant. The man behind the attack. The person responsible was Martin Bryant, a 28-year-old man from Hobart. Bryant had grown up with severe societal issues and social difficulties, and was described by people who knew him as unpredictable and childlike in nature. He received disability pension, and after the death of a wealthy friend, he inherited a large sum of money that allowed him to live without working. Despite his financial independence, Bryant lived a lonely and increasingly isolated life. In the years leading up to 1996, his erratic behavior worsened. He bought multiple firearms, despite having no license and no apparent reason to own them. Later psychiatric assessments would paint a troubling picture of a man with low intellectual ability, narcissism, and explosive tendencies. By around 1:30 p.m, Bryant arrived at Port Arthur. The site was bustling with visitors. More than 500 were there that day. Bryant brought a ticket to the grounds, walked to the Broad Arrow Cafe, and sat down. Witnesses recalled that he ordered a meal and spoke casually with staff. Then, without warning, he pulled out a semi-automatic rifle from his bag and began firing into the crowded cafe. The attack in the cafe. Within just 15 seconds, Bryant fired 17 shots. 12 people were killed instantly, and several more were badly wounded. Survivors later described the horror of these moments: families crouching under tables, people running for the exits, and the sound of gunfire echoing through the building. Bryant left the cafe and continued shooting outside. Tourists who had no idea what was happening became his next victims. In the car park, he killed several more before getting into his vehicle and driving away. The pursuit continues. Bryant's rampage didn't end at the historic site. Over the next hour, he drove through the surrounding area, attacking anyone who crossed his path. He stopped at a toll booth and murdered the staff. He forced a woman from her car, killed her and her children, and stole the vehicle. Witnesses on the side of the road reported chaos as drivers tried to escape. By the time Bryant returned to the seascape cottage, he had already killed dozens of people. The hostage standoff. Back at the cottage, Bryant set the stolen car on fire and barricaded himself inside with a hostage. For the next 18 hours, police surrounded the buildings while negotiators tried to make contact.
Oh, hello.
It's Terry again. How are you?
I'm fine.
How's things going in there, mate?
Fine, couldn't be better. Just like on a Hawaiian holiday.
Hawaiian holiday?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean by that.
I don't know myself, no. I'm making up some sandwiches. These people have got salad and some bacon in the
Right.
and eggs. I'm going to fry up some bacon and eggs for them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I've got to go because this kettle's squealing downstairs, and I'm making a cup of tea now for the hostages.
The standoff ended the following morning when Bryant set the house ablaze. He ran from the burning building but was captured by officers. Badly burned, he was taken to hospital under guard. The victims. The human toll of the Port Arthur massacre was staggering. 35 people were killed and more than 23 were injured. The victims ranged from small children to elderly tourists. They were Australians, New Zealanders, and visitors from abroad. Families were shattered in minutes. Survivors carried both physical and psychological scars that would last a lifetime. For Tasmania, and for Australia as a whole, it was a day that changed everything. The trial. Bryant was quickly charged with 35 counts of murder, among other offences. His defence team initially considered a plea of not guilty by reason of mental impairment, but a psychiatric evaluation found him legally sane. In November of 1996, he changed his plea to guilty. He was sentenced to 35 life sentences without parole, plus an additional 1,652 years for other charges. He remains imprisoned at Risdon Prison in Hobart, where he is kept under heavy security. The impact on Australia. The Port Arthur massacre had immediate and lasting effects on the country. Within weeks, the Australian government, led by Prime Minister John Howard, introduced sweeping gun control reforms. Semi-automatic and automatic rifles were banned. A national buyback scheme was launched, resulting in the destruction of more than 600,000 firearms. The changes were controversial at the time, but they reshaped Australia's relationship with guns. In the decades since, Australia has not experienced another mass shooting of comparable scale. The legacy of Port Arthur. For the people of Tasmania, the massacre left a deep scar. Survivors and families of the victims continue to live with the trauma. The Port Arthur historic site now includes a memorial garden and a reflective pool near the Broad Arrow Cafe, where the deadliest part of the attack took place. Visitors are encouraged to remember the lives lost, rather than the man who took them. Conclusion. The Port Arthur massacre is one of the darkest chapters in modern Australian history. It was a day that exposed the vulnerability of ordinary people enjoying a peaceful afternoon, but it also became a turning point, forcing a nation to confront the issue of gun violence and act decisively. The story of Port Arthur is not just about tragedy, it is also about resilience, remembrance, and the determination to make sure such horrors never happen again.